Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Good to talk to you. I'm recording already anyway, but suppose I'll introduce you. My guest today is renowned comic writer and illustrator Michael Kupperman. He has a new book out called All the Answers, which I suppose we'll get into now. It's kind of a personal book, and to be honest, I was reading when I finished reading it. I was like, I don't know if I can actually talk to you about this.
Yeah, it's very personal. I expose myself a lot, in a sense.
It was one of those.
No,
Sorry,
sorry. Go
no, go
ahead.
on, go on.
It's just, I had to really show some of my personal pain in the book. Even though it's about my father, I had to show the effect that his life had on me.
I mean, we don't have to focus solely on that on the book. I mean, we can talk about maybe your feelings in comics in general. I mean, I suppose we'll touch on a lot of things. But just as a side note here, how long have I got you for actually? Because now you're probably very busy.
I can be on for, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes.
Okay, perfect. That's all right, son. I remembered I didn't actually have that started out with you. Sorry about that. Um, but yeah, so it was one of those things. I was reading the book, and it was kind of like I think if it was me writing it, I would have kind of gone. Well, I kind of said everything I wanted to say here. You can just read the book, kind of a thing, almost. You know, was that kind of your feeling after about maybe having to talk about it afterwards?
Uh, no, actually,
Oh,
I've had a few interviews already about the book,
yeah.
and it's actually interesting because I just finished it pretty recently. I'd say I finished writing it in October, November,
Mm,
writing and drawing the main part, and then there was a couple months of editing, and then the cover, and I did everything on the cover, and that
oh,
took up until about 6 weeks ago.
oh, wow.
So it's all been a recent process. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
it's unusual that a book comes out so quickly after
yeah.
being finished. But no, there's a lot that came out of it that I'm still thinking about,
Hmm.
both personal stuff and then political and historical stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things that have come out of it that are still interesting. So actually, I find that every time I do an interview, something new comes up
Hmm.
because talking about it, new ideas emerge. There's still things coming out of it that I want to investigate.
Yeah.
So I'm not tired of talking about it yet.
Oh, that's good.
But I did try to design the book so that it would be very self-contained.
Hmm.
A story
Yep.
from kind of start to finish.
Yeah. I think you did that brilliantly anyway. I suppose for folks at home who don't know, it's a. Do you describe it as a graphic novel, or are you calling it a comic book, or how do you describe it yourself? The
Well, we
work.
put the words graphic memoir on it,
Oh,
but
okay. All
that's
right.
sort of not accurate because it's really about my father, not about me. So it's not truly speaking a memoir,
Mm-hmm.
only very slightly.
Yeah,
But there wasn't a word I could think of that would fit better.
that's
So
true.
that's what we went with.
It is an interesting piece, all right, and people kind of obviously compared this to Alison Bechdel's her book, Fun Home and things like that. But your one kind of goes a bit beyond what Alison did. It's your relationship with your father, but also how, as you said, like it had like affects what would happen in the book. I suppose we should just say that your father was extremely famous in the 40s and 50s for being on a radio program. Am I right in the dates and that? The years? The 40s and 50s, or was it the
Yeah,
50s? Or yeah,
yes, he started on it in 1942
that
and
was
he
yeah.
left it in 1952.
Mm. And he was. I mean, when I say extremely famous, I mean like Orson Welles once did magic tricks for him. That's how
Yeah,
very famous he was. And well, I suppose and I suppose what was tough about maybe writing it. I don't know why I'm saying it like that because it sounds like I wrote it, but for listeners at home, is that your father had actually kind of suppressed a lot of these memories of what had happened.
yes, he had completely tried to wipe his brain clean. And
Mm,
it's very frustrating because he did meet so many famous and historical personalities
yeah.
of that era, but trying to get his memories of any of them, it was just, he had almost nothing left,
Mm.
because he really had tried to suppress everything connected with that period of his life.
Mm. I would recommend anyone though give this book a read. It's amazing. The artwork is very interesting as well. It's almost like photographs. The artwork. It's very interesting. It's black and white, and just it's really kind of it stands out. You know, the art style.
Oh, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, I did obviously rely on a lot of photographic
Mm.
reference, and I wanted the artwork to help the story, but not to get in the way,
Yeah.
and not to be too over fussy,
Mm-hmm.
or too elaborate. I wanted it just to be as simple and as stark as possible, so you just move through the story.
Yeah, what you definitely get that. I was glued to it. I said to you after I read it, and I actually was like about to message you, and I was like, going, maybe I need a few minutes to kind of assess what I've just read because I read it in one sitting in an afternoon, which I've almost never done, and I just flew through it. It was amazing, and I was like examining all the artwork. I was like, I want to take everything in, and but it was a very, it wasn't a quick read because I was there for a couple of hours reading it, but it was just very, you just became glued to it. So it was very, I
Oh,
wanted to
thank
hear
you.
what happened again, I wanted to read more about what was going on and everything, and just really, yeah, I was really amazed by it, and it was really good. I loved it a lot. But apart from that, now you've done work for other things. You're kind of, I suppose you would, people say comics, maybe a lot of people listening to this program maybe don't know much about comics and things like that. Maybe you just think superheroes, but you've done kind of parody superhero stuff, but you wouldn't be a comic book superhero artist kind of person.
No, I have drawn superheroes for DC and Marvel,
Oh,
but
you have.
when they were trying out, wacky,
That would be, yeah,
alternate comics artists.
yeah.
I guess I'm more in what people would call now alternative comics,
Mhm.
but when I started, it was art comics or underground comics,
Yeah.
and then I've moved through, several historical phases of comics,
Yeah.
and where I am now, I guess, is alternative. But with this book, I'm trying to reach out to an audience beyond comics,
Yeah, that's
because
the thing.
comics got insular.
They have
Yeah.
it kind of branched out. I think in the year 2000s. I feel it in myself. That's when I got into them because I was never a big superhero fan, and actually, what killed superhero comics for me as a teenager was Watchmen because it was on that book I went, oh, superheroes are kind of stupid, and I ended up
Yeah.
going down the road of underground comics with Art Spiegelman and Hate Comics and all that kind of stuff for America and everywhere else. And
Yes,
yeah,
that was huge for me too.
mm,
Raw and
that's it. Yeah,
all the artists in Raw,
mm,
and then before that, the underground comics.
yeah,
Like Zap
mm,
and some other stuff. There's a Dutch one that's brilliant called Tant Leonie Presentiert, and just the way they completely disregarded any rules of what you could show or what you could describe.
yeah.
Really, I thought those were amazing.
Mm.
But, I came on comics just as Raw was ending.
Oh, okay.
So I missed being in it, which will always make me sad.
Oh, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think the two I always think of, the two kind of comic books like that would have been Hate and Raw would have been more experimental and artistic, and you would see a write up of that. You wouldn't be amazed to see that in the New York Times, or New Yorker, or something. Whereas Hate was where I think R. Crumb ended up writing for Hate for a little bit, or they worked together on something. People who did that and R. Crumb. Might be wrong on that.
And then there was also heavy metal,
Yes.
which in the late 70s, early 80s, for a few years was absolutely amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
just amazing stuff.
But it also reflected what was going on in Europe, that there was this incredible freedom of expression in comics going on in Europe. So, I like everything great. It didn't last, but for a few years there, it was amazing.
Yeah. And of course, Mobius would have started out in work like that. That's, I suppose, the most famous one. Who was?
I think it was his company. He started it with some other artists.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
Was it Metal Harlot or something? It was, or something like that.
yes,
Yeah, but it's more
Metal
fun. Yeah, that is it. Yeah, not metal hairless. Like I'm
I
saying,
worked.
this is weird.
I actually worked for it years later, but it was when it. It was. I actually worked for it right when it was taken over by Kevin Eastman, who did
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But by
Yeah.
then, it was a very different magazine.
Yeah, it had
You know, it
changed. It was,
became
yeah.
the Barbarian Boobs magazine we know
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. um. Um. Which. But you do you have you worked for places like Fantagraphics and things like that?
Oh yeah, my Fantagraphics was my publisher for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I did